views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Mission Bronx, a show dedicated to highlighting some of the wonderful work being done by the nonprofit organizations in the Bronx. Mission Bronx is a collaboration between BronxNet Television and the Center for Nonprofits at Hostos Community College, and I'm your host, Eileen Newman. Previously on Mission Bronx, we learned about two beautiful gardens in the heart of the South Bronx, where youth are given the opportunity to volunteer and learn the importance of urban farming. Now in this episode of Mission Bronx, we take to the streets of the South Bronx and learn about Dancing in the Streets, an organization that nurtures urban artists. We'll find out about all of this and more on this edition of Mission Bronx. Welcome everyone to Mission Bronx. Today we're in the heart of the South Bronx visiting an organization called Dancing in the Streets. Founded in 1984, this organization has provided movement-based projects through long-term initiatives, artistic exploration, and deep community engagement. Throughout their 30-plus years, Dancing in the Streets has put on over 500 free public performances and has won numerous awards and recognition for their work in the Bronx community. Executive Director of Dancing in the Streets, Simon Dove, told us more about how he became involved in the organization. So here we are with Simon Dove, the Executive Director of Dancing in the Streets, at the Bronx co-working space. So, Simon, can you tell us a little bit about the space?
Yeah, this is a new space in the Bronx. It's one of the first co-working spaces in the South Bronx. And really it's a place where small businesses and service industries are all starting now to rent office spaces. But the great thing about it, of course, is there's a huge communal space and a salon and a kitchen. So we all get to meet and chat and plot together about how we can really develop our work in the South Bronx.
And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful
It's
space.
fantastic, and it's really well positioned on 3rd Avenue, overlooking the Roberto Clemente Plaza, which we hope will be open soon. And that's the place where we're going to be doing a lot of work and focusing a lot of the work of Dancing in the Streets.
So there may be people who are watching this who don't know about Dancing in the Streets or haven't encountered Dancing in the Streets. So I want to hear about your trajectory and how you got here, but first, can you tell us a little bit about it and how it started?
Sure. Well, it's a really old organization. It was set up in the early 80s, 1984 actually, when, I don't know if you remember, David Bowie and Mick Jagger did a cover version of Dancing in the Streets, the song.
Yes.
And I think that's where the title comes from, but actually it's an older Motown song from the 60s,
Right.
Dancing in the Streets,
Right.
mentioning Chicago and New Orleans, you remember? And it was set up by a woman called Elise Bernhardt, who was a choreographer and dancer, but she was really interested in animating public space with dance. So it was very much about getting out and they opened with a huge event that celebrated the Brooklyn Bridge centenary in 1983.
Right.
That's when they had a first event, and then she created the organization the following year. So, and then every year they created events in all kinds of spaces, from old aerodromes to the old tobacco factory in Dumbo, which is now Sedan's warehouse.
Right.
And gradually more and more events and ways of connecting what was then really the downtown dance scene with the architectural spaces and the amazing public spaces that the city had to offer, bringing those two things together.
I remember the first time I ever saw Dancing in the Streets was in a hallway in a bank building downtown, and the dancers were kind of hanging off the stairwells, and then you had to go up and down and follow them around, and it was extraordinary.
Yeah, and it was really using the architecture of the city as the space in which you could perform, which of course starts to not only show that the city is a place where you can really animate and perform and engage people, but it's also about getting people to also think about the city in a different way, that it's not just a collection of buildings that you have to go into, but all these buildings offer us a space that we can work with, that can be a projection screen, that can be a backdrop, and they start to connect with the way we think about living in a city and making work in the city.
And how did you get involved with Dancing in the Streets?
Me, I only came 2 years ago.
Okay.
what I should say is Dancing in the Streets moved to the South Bronx in 2011 and got very involved in building pieces. It was then based in Casita Maria in Simpson Street in Hunts Point, and was very involved in creating pieces that celebrated the cultural developments in the South Bronx. They did a whole piece around hip-hop, they did a whole piece around salsa, but always outside, bringing people again to celebrate this work within the communities in which it was forged and formed. And I came 2 years ago, and I was interested in a sense, pushing the mission of the organization further. What I wanted to do was spend a lot of time working with the dancers and the dance forms here, and a lot of that being still street dance and hip hop, but also looking at this whole idea of how artists really work with communities.
Which is something that has now become, I think, more of a conversation.
I hope so.
I think there is.
It's work I was doing a lot of in Europe, and in Europe there was a lot of public investment in the idea that an artist was a really healthy part of any society. And artists were really catalysts for thinking about issues, for problems, for communities to kind of engage and discuss ideas and deal with issues. You know, an artist was often offering a safe space for that to happen. And I think here, as we are losing a lot of faith in, governmental systems, even in faith systems, even in education systems, communities are now looking how do we engage with some of those really urgent and important ideas that we are faced with every day, but which we feel the existing structures already have a vested interest in the outcome. Right. How do we set up a real dialogue? And often, as communities are trying to find ways in which they just need to get through each day and each week, time and space to have those kinds of interactions and engagements, I think, are very limited. So we're working with artists to bring them into a kind of creative dialogue with communities, both to find ways to celebrate those communities, and in a sense to work with them on the culture that's already there. There's lots of culture happening in the South Bronx, but an artist can be a really powerful catalyst to make things happen, to kind of shift the framework sometimes, just to give people an excuse, to connect, to think, to work, to play, and to enjoy each other. And that's really what we're doing. So we're setting up now projects that we're working with Mitchell houses in the South Bronx. We're working with Cases, which is an alternative sentencing program for teens. Right. We're starting to work now with the Mott Haven Reformed Church to develop a community choir. So we're looking at all these projects that bring people together in a creative way, celebrating who and what those people are and what those communities are, but where we can help to build connections and communication across generations often, which is a big issue. Right. Grandkids and grandparents connecting around something that brings them together, but also bringing communities together who are often living in neighborhoods that are close, but they have no reason to be engaging with each other. And we're really excited that the Roberto Clemente Plaza is going to open. I mean, it's really a shame it's taking so long, and that's an issue that I think the city's finally recognizing they need to be addressing. We planned an opening last year, we planned an opening this year, and we're still actually waiting for it to open. But once it's open as a space that the community can access throughout 24/7, it's a place we want to animate with events that we're not just programming performances, but the community are involved in bringing artists, their own communities together to both celebrate who and what they are, but also to share and to show and to bring people together. So seeing the plaza really as a catalyst for building the community in the South Bronx and around.
And in the hub, in an area that's getting a lot of attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really why we're happy to be in this building, this Bronx co-working space, because also here is the 3rd Avenue Business Improvement District, and they're really responsible for you could say, the business life of 3rd Avenue. But I think with Mike O'Brady, the new director, they have a really enlightened view that culture and cultural programming can be a really important tool in building community and building community resilience, but also building community creativity. So we're going to work a lot with them on developing creative programs through the year, which will have these moments in the plaza when they come to fruition.
Which I was just thinking when you said the word culture that sometimes we see culture as being something that happens in this space that you go to and you spend a lot of money getting a ticket for. So there's something simple in thinking, I think, about, no, you have the community be part of it, but it's a gigantic thought because there isn't very much out there, especially there hasn't been in the Bronx that really allows that or encourages that.
But I think it's to do with, in an American context and a New York context, there's very little investment of public money in culture. Culture is seen as something that actually is a luxury we can't afford. Whereas my view is actually culture is as vital as any kind of services. It's as vital as being able to turn on fresh water.
Right.
That people need a way in which they can not only articulate their own thoughts and feelings, but can build communication and connections with each other, and culture offers you that chance. And everyone says, well, food brings people together, but food is culture too. Culture is all around us, it's in everyone. It's not something you have to, buy an expensive ticket and go and sit in a theater to be part of. Culture is what you're doing daily, it's what you're sharing with your family and your friends. But I think it's important that starts to be something that can be more consciously used to develop communication across community. Right. And artists, I think, can be a really powerful way of helping those ideas develop and helping those communities to build those things, those things that connect people. So it's really about seeing artists as being an integral part of any healthy social system, and where artists live and work with the communities in which they work, helping build community, but also developing ways in which communities celebrate each other, connect with each other, and celebrate what it is to be here in the South Bronx, and also here in New York City.
Yeah, which is wonderful that you're here doing this, and that you took time to talk to us.
But I think it's an important moment because, the city of New York has just gone through a process of producing its very first cultural plan called Create NYC. And the idea of that, of course, is to start to address some of these historic, cultural practices that have been ignored, but I think more importantly, address the massive inequity in public funding for the arts. Most of the money goes to 33 large institutions that are in government buildings on government land. The small amount of money left goes to all the small organizations in the community. And I think the city really needs to seriously think about, if it's going to address a historic inequality, you can't just tweak a system like that, which is already so imbalanced. You really have to find a lot of new money to support culture in communities and let that be a powerful balance to your established institutions.
And to support organizations like Dancing in the Streets.
One hopes.
Yes.
But frankly, what we're trying to do is employ artists who can then work in the community, and finding ways to sustain that is really important, because it's not about doing short, 5-week projects. It's about saying, I'm here and I'm going to work with you for the next 3 years. And it doesn't matter what we produce. It's not about making a product. It's about working together creatively. And out of that will come all kinds of events and showings and sharings and food. Because that's what is there.
That's part of it.
But
I know that we're going to.
But it keeps artists in the city and it helps build community. And for me, that's the two most important things.
And I think we're going to see some of the culture today. So thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're taking a break, but coming up, we'll learn about one of Dancing in the Street's current projects with its Showtime NYC. Stay tuned.
Coming to you from our BronxNet studios, 4 new shows highlighting some of the best of the Bronx has to offer. We sit down with political leaders on In the District and discuss local legislation, events, and issues. See how the community and business come together with The Bronx Now on BronxNet. Nosotros features leaders from a Latino community. Meet those who are moving to make a difference in public service, business, arts, and culture. Looking for new and exciting dining experiences? Then you'll want to savor the Bronx and try new restaurants and eateries that fill the borough with delicious dishes. We have it all, so experience the Bronx in new and fresh ways on BronxNet.
Well, I got this as a paid internship. Spending my time here, I really enjoyed the people that work here. I enjoy what goes on behind the scenes.
So far, I've learned how to operate a camera, how to host. I learned how to control audio.
My first time hosting was really nerve-wracking, but I really enjoyed it because it was a new experience.
Welcome back. We've been learning all about dancing in the streets and their involvement in the Bronx community to nurture urban artists. It's Showtime NYC is one of the projects they are working with, and program director Mei Lee Ho tells us more about their involvement. So I'm sitting here with Mei Lee Ho, who is from It's Showtime NYC. She's the program director there. And I have to admit, I didn't know about It's Showtime. So can you, I know a little bit, but the audience may not know a little bit or a lot. So can you tell us what Showtime is?
So It's Showtime NYC is a program of dancing in the streets. It's a non-profit based in the Bronx right here. The program is to help street and subway dancers get off the subway because it's illegal for them to perform in the subway. So some of them get arrested. Last year, 300 dancers got arrested for dancing on the subway. So the program is to try to help them by providing them with paid and legal performance opportunities and also training. So if they want to perform as a career in dance, they train here and have paid performances. If they want to learn how to teach dance, we have a training for that. If they want to learn how to film dance or doing media around dance, we also train them in that and just give them like counseling on how to further their career in the arts in general.
How do you find the dancers?
So we have some printed cards. I don't have them with me right now, but it's kind of just a business card. And when the MTA police sees the dancers now, they give them the cards, kind of like, hey, you try to avoid being arrested and join this program instead. And also just word of mouth. A lot of the dancers that are in the group right now have friends that are hitting in the streets or in the subway, so they tell them about the program and they bring them in the program. A lot of it is word of mouth.
So how did Showtime begin?
So it came from a conversation with the mayor's office about 2 years ago. The program was created in 2015. And basically the mayor's office is also trying to find a solution to this problem of arresting dancers in the subway. So they reached out to Dancing in the Streets and Mark Moore's dance group. It's a dance center in Brooklyn to work together to put this program together. That's how it started.
And how did you get involved with it?
I got involved through Simon Dove. I'm a street dancer myself. I don't come from the street and subway background. I started to dance in France and I moved to the States 8 years ago. But I've been around the street dance community for 15 years plus. So I'm familiar with that world, and I also have a background in administration and finance, and so it's kind of a good mix
to put those together.
Exactly, and have a meaningful work for my community.
So I would imagine, but that's only because of who I see on the subways dancing, that you primarily are working with young people who are really starting out, or?
So most of the dancers are from 17 to 26 years old. Most of them are fairly early in their career, so we're still trying to help them figure out what direction they want to take with it, and help them along the way, support their decisions, their dreams, their aspirations, their trials and errors, just the journey.
So you're actually, it seems like you're mentoring them in addition to working with them in their dance skills.
In a sense, but we also connect them with other mentors. We invite people to come and talk to them and share their journey in dance or not. Sometimes it's not related to dance at all. We had a journalist come to speak recently. His name is Jimmy Briggs, and the dance is super connected with him because just of his life story and background, where he comes from, what he has been through, his travels around the world, and what he has gathered from that, and that was very inspiring to them. So it can be anything.
Huh. I really have to say I love this. One of my favorite things about doing this show is that I work with nonprofits and I feel that I know what they do, and then this happens. I had no idea that this program existed, and now this will completely change my subway rides now. So I want some cards. So that I can
but don't
give
you
them
want
out
just
to
the
people.
dancers directly?
Yeah.
I want the dancers on the subway.
Right. So thank you so much for doing what you do, and also for talking to us. Next, we're taking it to the streets for a special performance by members of It's Showtime NYC.
Our ancestors built this place. From the foundation that we call solid rock to everything that we are. They live here, they are within us, and we are endeavoring to keep the unity of peace and love with each other. We never let our enemies take fault or bring us down from anything that they have done. Our solid rock is something that keeps us steadfast, unmovable. We have to remember that with anything that comes our way, that we must keep pushing forward, stay endeavored to keep the unity, and remain united despite any defeat.
So I'm here with two of these great dancers, and can you tell me your names?
I'm Rhea, aka Wildcard, Two Eyes.
Well, I'm Israel Jules, also known as Tails.
Which is great, because I would have just called you Israel and not gone to the whole fabulous name that you have. And also, can you tell me how you got involved with this?
Well, we got involved through a mutual friend, but we were also in the same crew. The crew was called Raiders of Concrete, or ROC. We started at Battery Park when the Showtime first started. So we started performing there, and then we moved to Mark Morris. And from there, the program grew. More people joined. We did a performance at the Supreme Court House, so it was pretty nice. That's when I really knew it was like, this is way bigger than we all think it is.
Yeah.
We really do something more with this. So
that's wow. That's a big wow. Yeah. And so how long have you been doing this?
I think it's about like
2 years.
Yeah, 2.5.
Oh yeah, 2.5 now.
Yeah, 2.5.
And when so you're going to you have performances, and where are the performances when you do them?
They're kind of all over the place so far.
Yeah.
We've done some in the Bronx. Did we do some in Brooklyn?
Yeah, we did some.
We did some in Brooklyn. We had a jam session in Brooklyn.
Yeah, one in Brooklyn, one in Bronx.
Yeah.
We also performed in Philly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Philly and other places like that. Are we going out the country?
Yeah, we're going out of the country.
Where?
As a group. One is in Paris, the other possibly, I don't even know if I can say, but possibly in Brazil.
And have you,
not performance in Brazil, in exchange.
okay, but have you been out of the country before?
I personally have not been out the country.
Okay, how about you?
I have twice. Well, I've been to Bahamas because my family's from there.
Okay.
And then I went to Canada.
But this is big.
Yeah, this is big.
Yeah,
This
now
is big.
overseas, like,
He might be doing another over the seas one, but they picked 4 dancers to go to Paris. So
yeah.
Congratulations.
It's cool. Thank you.
Have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Thank you for stopping to talk to us. I know you wanted to watch everything, so
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank
a
you.
lot. Good luck. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I want to thank everyone at Dancing in the Streets and its Showtime NYC for being a part of our show. And thanks to you, our viewer, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's episode, or if you would like to check out past episodes of Mission Bronx, go to www.bronxnet.tv. See you next time for another edition of Mission Bronx.
Everything that's here for the taking, my friend. The only one is you.